Learn how to capture the data entered into the expense tracker form. In this lesson, we want to learn how to capture form data. So let me start by changing this, selecting elements to capturing form data. Capturing form data. So we want to look at what happens when user enters a description, an amount, and a transaction type. So for example, let's say a description goes like this and say salary, and then the amount is like maybe 100,000, and the type of it is income. Now, if you click on that transaction right now, it is not going to do anything because there are still scope that we have left out that we are yet to cover in this our application development. So in order to actually make this work in our expense tracker, JavaScript needs to get this value when the user submits the form. And the way we are going to be able to do this is we are going to make use of the form event, which is this add transaction, in order to do this. So let's move into our JavaScript code and see how we can actually achieve that. So I will move to the next line, and I'm going to look for the ID that corresponds to how we can actually add a transaction in our expense tracker. So I'll come inside my HTML and look at where the submit is happening. So this is the place. You can see the submit is a button, which is this actually. But the form has an ID of good. This is the form itself. It has an ID of transaction 4. So this is the form 1 and 2. So the input for description as well as the one for the amount. Then we also have the label too. So let's move into my JavaScript file. And since I've gotten the ID of the form, which is this transaction form, so I can attach an event listener to this transaction form dot add event listener. So it is a method that JavaScript provides. The add event listener method of the event target interface set up a function that will be called whenever the specific event is delivered to the target. So we'll call on that add event listener, and instead of it, we want to add what we want to listen for, and then a function to run when that event is fired. So in our case, we actually want to listen for a submit event. And that submit event, if you look into our HTML, it eventually comes from this button of add transaction. So this is the event we want to listen for, a submit event. And once we do that, we want a function to run. And this function will take in the event and then we run whatever we add inside of it. So I want to use an event property provided by JavaScript to prevent default. That is, if nothing is entered, then we cannot go ahead and make submission. And now I'll go ahead now and log this to the console for now. So we'll see whatever we type inside the inside our input box description. And we'll use the value property to get that. Console.log amount.value, and lastly console.log type.value. So this value is a property in JavaScript that you can actually use to capture value of something in your application or your program. So I'll come into the console and clear this. So let me go ahead now and try to click on add transaction, and let's see what's happening. And now you can see salary, and this is the exact value I entered to the input box for the description. You can see 100,000. This is what I entered for the amount, and then you can see the type of income, and this is the type that I selected. So if I change it to expense, now let's see what is going to happen. So let me clear this, and then let me add transaction again, and you can see that from income it has changed to expense. So Basically, we have learned how we can actually capture information that the user enters into our form by adding an add event listener to listen for the submit event, which is the ID of this button that we have here. And so when the form is submitted, this function, which is the other part of the data passing to our add event listener, runs. And then the browser normally reload the page when a form is submitted. And in order to prevent that, that is the purpose of why we use this event dot prevent default method to stop that behavior. Now we can then access our users data just like we saw now inside the console by using the value property to capture whatever is entered as the description, the amount, and also the type that is selected. So this gives us whether the transaction is an income or an expenses. And basically for now, we are only displaying this value in the console so that we can see what exactly JavaScript has captured. So I change from salary and I put something, maybe I change this to rent. Then if I go ahead to run this, you will see that immediately this will also show in the console. So JavaScript will capture it. And you can see from salary, this has changed to rent and the amount. So now we are certain that we are successfully selecting our ID that correspond to what we have in our HTML, and we have just begun to use JavaScript to manipulate each of these. So right now, we are not actually displaying this information on the web page. We are only showing it in the console in order to know whether we are successfully targeting the right HTML element as we add it in our expense tracker application. So here are a few key takeaways from this lesson. Number one, our form have a submit event. Look at our form. You can see that at the end of that form, we have a submit event, which is the type that is given to our button. Number two is that add event listener let us respond to form submission. So the add event listener is a method that JavaScript provides. It's not something that we're just creating from scratch, and it allows us to respond to form submission. Number three is that event.prevent default method prevent the page from reloading. So when you want an action to be done without reloading the page, especially when it comes to form submission, we make use of the event.prevent default. So it will prevent our page from reloading. Number four is that the value property get the value entered or selected by the user. You can see that we are making use of the value property to capture whatever the user has entered into the form. And lastly, we can capture multiple values from a form. You can see that in our case, we are capturing 3 values. So if you have like 5, 10 or more, you can always use the value property to capture them.